Hey, welcome to the Social 333 podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bentley. Today, my guest, Andre Van Broeck. I'm sorry, Broeck. I knew I was going to screw that up. Sorry. Okay. Andre Van Broeck.
Yeah. Van Den Broek.
Van Den Broek.
There you go.
There we go. Sorry about that.
It's all good, man.
Cool. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your background and what's going on with your company.
Yeah, I born in Austin, raised in DFW, grew up in Cedar Hill. 26-year entrepreneur, married 3 wonderful kids, Great Dane. We live up in Prosper. I learned very early that I was not going to be a good employee. Played soccer in college for 4 years, and somehow at the end of that, I still had 2 years left. So kind of forced my hand to start doing my own things. But I'm really passionate about entrepreneurship and people. And, we've got some really exciting things going on in our life right now.
Awesome. Talk about like what you got going on. So we kind of talked offline a little bit, like I looked into your business. So what is it that really like you're doing right now that you got going on?
Yeah. So the name of our company, the holding company, is Godspeed Holdings, Inc. And Godspeed Holdings has holdings in life insurance, health insurance. We do a lot of life and health, and then retirement planning. A big portion of our business is helping people that are getting into their retirement years or actually are retired, protect and grow their retirement funds, because the stuff that you do to get to retirement isn't the same thing. The same strategies don't serve you getting through retirement. So we help them with that process. And then the other chunk of our business is done with the younger demographic, primarily helping them with things like mortgage protection insurance. And then we do a lot of infinite banking. And I say infinite banking in a general term because most people know the term infinite banking. And the concept of it is simply you contribute to a permanent life policy. It accumulates in cash value. Then you're able to take loans out of that cash value to use for whatever. So a lot of people's understanding of infinite banking stops there, Chris. But we really like to teach people how to leverage infinite banking to do things like get out of debt in a third of the time, including your mortgage, without paying any more per month than you currently are. Using infinite banking for real estate investing and things of the sort. So we're primarily life, health, and retirement right now. A lot of infinite banking. We're in the process of acquiring a real estate company as we speak. And we have plans to acquire a mortgage after that to become a diversified financial services company.
That's really cool that you're like kind of covering a lot of bases. I know I do a lot of that kind of stuff, or did at one point. Like I used to sell life and health insurance. Mm-hmm. I used to sell, I have my own capital management company, but like I don't sell mutual funds. It's like actual equities and buying and trading all the time. Talk to me. I know we talked a little bit offline, but like the business credit stuff. So I was looking on your website, like you do like loans to businesses, or like how does that work?
Yeah, so I'll tell you kind of the genesis of the service. We believe if people work with Godspeed, we want to help create and grow entrepreneurs. We don't necessarily look at just somebody that's looking to sling some insurance to make some extra commissions. And we recognize that one of the things that prohibits entrepreneurs from being able to scale is access to liquidity and access to capital. So Godspeed Credit Suite is a system where somebody can pay into the system, and it takes you from A to Z to create credit worthiness for your corporation. A lot of people don't know any better because they'll have an LLC or an S Corp or whatever they've been told to get. They'll go out and think they're getting business credit when they're actually having to personally guarantee it. And if hell and high water come, and they're going to be on the hook for the loan still. And they don't recognize that. So our goal is to help entrepreneurs get in a position to make sure that their business is credit worthy so they can get access to capital that they don't have to personally guarantee.
That's really cool because I've taken out a SBA loan before, and it's helped me in some parts, and it's also kind of handicapped me in some other parts because now you got some debt, right? And for me, like I got a really low interest rate, so it's what they qualify as good debt, right? But I have debt. So somebody that's, a business owner, maybe a small entrepreneur, small business owner, just a small shop, like kind of how I was. I only had 4 agents, right? So just me and 4 agents go out there, and I had this like huge loan, which was cool. I bought a lot of leads, and like at that time I was making a lot of money, and the market was hot, so it was great for me, and I made more money. I doubled my money. But somebody that's, let's just say that, I don't know, like what have you run into? Somebody needs some capital. Maybe they're like trying to buy something, another location, or some expand, or, you know, in a situation like me, buy more leads, like what more marketing, like what are you kind of seeing? What are most people that are a small business owner, like what are they really looking for with the capital?
Yeah, I mean, it can be a plethora of reasons why they need capital, which then determines the type of capital that they get, right? So the idea or the plan for Godspeed Credit Suite is to take an entrepreneur and over the course of 9 months, get them in a position where they can get just about any type of funding that they want. So they can get credit cards, they can get lines of credit, they could potentially qualify for an SBA loan. The type of credit that they get, again, is going to determine on their needs and how quickly they feel like they can multiply the money, right? On an SBA loan, you're required to start making payments pretty quick.
Yeah.
On a line of credit, not so much.
Right.
You know, so a lot of times a small business owner that isn't quite sure how quickly they can return the investment that they're going to be spending from the loan might do something like a line of credit where they're only having to pay on the amount that they have out versus the entire amount loaned. So it just depends on what the business is and how quickly they feel like they can start flipping cash. For Godspeed, you could give us $5 million tomorrow. We would know where to spend it and feel really good about being able to multiply that money over the next 3, 4, 5 months.
Nice.
Most small businesses don't operate that way because we're a lead-based driven business like you.
Right.
So for us, we know if we buy X amount of leads, our conversion rate is going to be Y, and then Z is going to be our output. So we can reverse engineer what it's going to look like for that investment. And I understand that, you know, Susie with the dry cleaning company may not be in the same situation.
Right.
So the type of funding that somebody takes out largely has to do with the type of business that they're running.
Okay. And then that company that you have right now, like, are you looking to take that thing public? Like, where are you at with it? Like, what's your long-term thing? Because I've looked at taking companies public. I've even looked at buying shell companies, like, because there's a lot of like really cool things that you could do once you get into having a public company because you raise funding, you do a lot of different things. Like, talk about kind of where you're going with that.
Yeah. So there's 2 primary reasons why a founder would go public. It's either to be done or because they're just getting started.
Right.
And for Godspeed, we're just getting started. So our current plan is to do a reverse takeover. We're pretty far down the line now. But our idea is to get on the public markets. We know our ability to scale, particularly with our acquisition strategy and our ability to generate our own leads in-house. We feel really good about our performance. So our plan is to, get on the public markets and then be able to tap into that liquidity to then reinvest back in the company and really scale at the pace that we want to.
Nice. You talked a little bit about entrepreneurs. Our audience is small business entrepreneurs. We have a lot of entrepreneurs on the podcast, even myself, entrepreneur, right? Like, so, like, what you've been doing for a long time, right? Like, what is it that you've kind of learned that like you can give to somebody that's maybe like works a job, maybe like, I don't know, maybe they failed their first business. Like, I failed a ton of business and like nobody talks about it. And like I watched some David Goggins like reel the other day where it's like, oh, like failing is just means you tried. Like you just get up and keep doing it, right? Like you just learn from that mistake, which I've done like multiple times. Sure. Like, tell me a little bit about what you would tell somebody that's like, hey, look, like, if I had a chance to do it differently, or if I had a chance to do it over, or if I had done X or watched, now we have like the internet, right? Yeah. YouTube. Like I didn't have that growing up. I'm sure, right? Like we didn't have that. Like we had to figure it out on our own, or like coaches, right? Like what can you give to somebody that's like, hey, look, like, if you're going to get into this space, whether you're working a job, not working a job, you're, 15 years old at high school and like, you don't want to, go to college like I was, like, what is it that you can like kind of give based off of your history?
Yeah, man, I could talk for 5 hours about this. How old are you, Chris?
47.
I'm 46.
Yeah. So we're in the same ballpark.
We are. Yeah. So when we were growing up, becoming an entrepreneur was not thought of as cool.
Right.
It was thought of as, I remember I dated a girl in high school and I loved her parents. Her parents loved me, but her father said to her, your boyfriend's just chasing rainbows. Like back then it was get your degree, climb the corporate ladder, being an entrepreneur, which created a great deal of insecurity in me because we didn't have access to all these other people that also felt led to start businesses, right? So you and I grew up in a time where it wasn't cool. And the worst thing that's ever happened to entrepreneurship is social media. And it's funny because it's also the best thing because it can help you scale your business so much faster if you do it correctly. But the whole idea of hashtag entrepreneurs just ruined it for entrepreneurs today. So one thing that I would say is that entrepreneurship is not something that you try. It's not. There's two different types of people. One person that would look at the stat and say that 9 out of 10 businesses fail, so why would I start a business? The other one is probably like you and me, and you hear 9 out of 10 businesses fail, so I've just got to be able to muscle through at least 10 businesses and I'll make it. Well, most people, it's completely unreasonable to think that most people will be able to handle failing 9 times to get to the 10th. But you and I will.
Right.
Because we feel called to do it. We're wired that way. You've got to choose your stress, right? People look at, for my entire life, Chris, I can't imagine the stress that comes with being an entrepreneur and doing your own thing and kind of eating what you kill. But these same people get let go by companies that they worked for 12 years and they have no backup plan. So to the person that's working the job, my first bit of advice would probably be don't leave. Unless when you're 90 days late on your mortgage, you feel so called to your vision that you're going to stick with it anyways, and you're not just going to divert to finding another job, right? You have to pick your stress. You're either going to be stressed out over relying on another person to pay your bills, having to check in for lunch and vacations, having to work in a cubicle, sit in traffic, 12 hours a week or whatever the number is and missing, Bobby's baseball games and this, that, and the other, or you choose the stress that you and I choose. Like we either make it or we don't, right? And for me in my life, I felt called at a very young age that I was created by God himself to be an entrepreneur. This is how he wired me. And one of the breakthroughs for me was a lunch that I had with one of my pastors. And I was talking to him. I was like, I just feel this frustration sometimes whenever things are going so badly. I wish I just had it in me to go get a job and be content with, getting a salary, but I'm just not, I don't feel that. And sometimes it felt like a level of irresponsibility, but he reassured me, God creates us the way that he creates us. So for the person that's working a job, unless you feel called to put everything on the line over and over and over again without having to go to Indeed, don't do it. But for those of you that do feel called and you're willing to risk everything, put everything on the line, everything, and you're willing to bet on yourself because you can pull yourself out of any situation, you'll probably be okay. It's just unreasonable the amount of pain that you have to go through to find the 10th one that works.
I was on a podcast recently, and that's like exactly what I was just kind of thinking was that I don't know if I'm called to do it. I'm just kind of wired that way. Like when I was a kid, I would wash cars. Like I would knock on people's doors and be like, hey, like your car is dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Like give me $10 and I'll wash your car. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I can buy a whole jug of this is back then, right? So like I can buy a whole jug of like car wash for like $2. And then the bucket is like, 50 cents or whatever, a buck, I don't know, whatever it is, and a sponge and a rag, right? And I'm like, well, like, what, I'm out like $5 and I'm going to make $5 profit because they're going to pay me $10.
Right.
So like, and I'd be like, okay, well, then I'm going to take that $10 and I'm going to buy, a bag of blow pops and go to school and so on for 25 cents. And the bag of blow pops is like, $3.
Right.
And like all to do is sell a couple of blow pops. And like, I'm already in the green. Right. And I was just like, this is how my mind is like kind of wired. And that was back before like, YouTube and eBay. And so, I mean, if I had eBay back then, like I would have sold all my mother's furniture. Like, and she would have come home and been like, "Where's all my furniture?" I've been like, "Oh yeah, I just sold them on eBay. Sorry, like they just came by, picked them up, right?" Or like Craigslist or wherever it is right now, or Facebook Marketplace, I think. It's just crazy that that's kind of like how we're wired, where we always are looking at that kind of stuff, like always looking at different things.
Well, I think it's also important to say that the relationship is symbiotic. We can't have the entire world being entrepreneurs because then we don't have anybody to work.
or buy our stuff, right?
Right. And we can't have the entire world being employees because we don't have anybody with the vision to create new opportunities. So the relationship is symbiotic. I mean, right now, again, with the pressure of social media, you're forced to think that one or the other is bad. And I don't think they are. I just think that before people get involved in business, you've just got to be willing to lose everything multiple times to win.
I actually got in trouble. I did a podcast that I was talking about earlier where like I talked about how one of my old mentors back when I was doing financial services, and I didn't really have a lot of money, and I was living at home with my mom.
Right.
And he was like, "Hey, look, like you want to be successful?" And I was like, hell yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like 26, 25 years old, right? Hell yeah, I want to be successful. Like I'm working at a bar, like I'm working like turning wrenches at a gas station and like at a dealership. I was a GM tech for a little bit. And he's like, "Okay, well, like get out your checkbook and write me all the money you have, and I'll deposit it in my bank account. And then when you make it, I'll give the money back to you." And I was like, no way, this guy's going to rip me off, right?
Yeah.
But it's exactly what it is because you're going to lose all your money.
Yeah.
You're chasing this vision, this dream that you have, and you're going to lose it all. And what he was doing was just doing me a favor. He was like, "Hey, look, I'll hang on to your money. Go work." And I was like, and it took me to like, a couple years ago to kind of be like, oh, that's what he's talking about.
Sure.
And like everybody on the internet's like, "Oh, you're crazy. Give me your money." I was like, dude, I mean, that's 100% because when you're backed against the wall and you have no choice, where like you can't pay your bill, like you don't have any food, like you're going to live in your car, which was me. Like I was about to live in my brand new leased BMW, right? Like you have to make a decision where you're like, "Hey, look, like the chips are down. I got to make something happen," whether it's doing a job and then creating a company off of that or whatever it is that you choose to do. And like that's kind of like how I feel about it and how I've done it. Like what has kind of like, if you get to do it differently or like you had those moments where you're like, man, like I'm just down. Like I ain't got nothing. Like it's dark, like what can you give to somebody? Because I know there's people out in the audience that are the same way like me, same way as you. They're like, "Hey, look, like, my business failed or it's on the ropes, like the economy sucks. Like, I'm hurting. Like, what can you like offer to somebody?"
Yeah, man. Look, when you're in business for yourself, like there just can't be alternatives to being in business for yourself. And now the way that the gig economy works, like it's so easy to be able to do a side hustle while you're also building your business, which is great. I will tell you that for me, I experienced many of my losses prior to meeting my wife. My wife and I this year will be married 13 years.
Congratulations.
Thanks. And
that's a whole job on its own.
Yeah. And it's Crystal is the example unequivocally that God makes a woman for every man, because I experienced a lot of my losses prior to meeting her, but she knew who she was marrying. So never once, and Chris, we've had our back against the wall more than I care to admit.
Right.
She never once told me, maybe you should find a job, or this is a stupid idea. She's never said it. Never. It's never come out of her mouth.
No negativity.
Never.
Nice.
Now, she also didn't champion me if I was being an idiot, and she's really protective of me. So if I've been wronged by somebody and I'm thinking about giving them another chance, she'll step in and be like, "Hey, we probably shouldn't do this," But I would say for people that are looking to eventually get married and be in business, if you don't have a spouse that sees the same vision as you, you're eventually going to have to choose between your spouse and your dreams, one or the other. So one of the things that I would say is make sure you marry the right person.
Right.
And I know if I went to Crystal and said, "Crystal, we need to sell this house to keep this business going," she would start packing. She might not be happy about it, Chris, but she would start packing.
Right.
Because we see outward in the same direction, right? And then also to the entrepreneur that's maybe not married and doesn't have that support system. Right now, I mean, I've got a 14-year-old Marley, I've got a 10-year-old Judah, and a 5-year-old Sadie. They all wanted me to say their name on the podcast. So I've got my kids, and they are so inundated with this opportunity to be poured into by people that don't really matter. So I've got to make sure that God and myself and my wife are the loudest voices in their life. And for entrepreneurs, you don't have to be a 10-year-old to think the same way. Like, consuming a podcast like this is helpful. Like, the stuff that you consume is a nutrition for your soul. So I would say continue to consume positive stuff, because you will have an abundance of opportunity to take in other people's opinions that just don't matter. And nothing will derail you more than stuff that really doesn't matter, whether it's opinions of others or the Porsche that you feel like you need to have, et cetera, et cetera. So stay focused on the vision, hell and high water. It's not a hell or high water thing. It's hell and high water. Like, if hell and high water happens, are you staying with it? The answer has to be yes in order for you to eventually find success. And the reality is, if the answer is not yes, you don't deserve the success.
Right.
Like, people want this unreasonably great life, but they're not willing to take unreasonable risks or go through unreasonable pain to get there. And again, social media has convinced us that we don't have to go through that in order to see that life.
Yeah, I think everybody's journey is a little bit different, but at the same time, like, they're all the same. You know what I mean? Like, we all failed businesses. We've all screwed up. We've all had those turn back moments. I watch a lot of Steve Harvey, and like, he talks with like the crowd and stuff. I don't know if you watch this stuff, but he has like an amazing story. And I know a lot of people don't like Steve, but that's cool. But his story is just truly amazing, I think. And then he talks about like his turn back moment, you know, like, and I think a lot of people as entrepreneurs, like, we have these turn back moments where, like, you know, what a turn back moment is like, you have that opportunity at that time to be like, you know what, this isn't working. Like, I'll just go, you know, work as, you know, a W-2 employee, typing every single day, whatever. And then, like, the other side of the turn back moment is like, hey, you know, this is it. Like, sell everything, like, burn the boats.
Yeah.
I'll live on the street and, you know, go, you know, take a shower at the gym and go work, do whatever I got to do. But like, it's a lot of also like believing in you, you know, and like, that's, I have a girlfriend. So like, me and her kind of talk about that kind of stuff all the time. I'm like, look, like, I've done it before. Even when I worked at the government, like, I had a little stint at the government, and I was like, look, like, I've made X before and I'm just having a bad time right now. But the skills didn't change. Like, the skills didn't go away from me. Like, I still have the same skills.
Right.
So I think a lot of people, like, when they're in that moment and that darkness, they forget, hey, look, like, I've done that before. You know, I have the skills. It just, I'm not getting the pitches I want to hit. You know, it's just wild.
Yeah. Been there, man.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Been there.
Andre, how does somebody find you? Where can they go? Is there a website? Social media?
Yeah, my Instagram handle is at Andre P like Paul, V like Victor, so ANDREPV. Our company website is Godspeed, GODSPEED.com. Whether it's an entrepreneur that just needs an ear, happy to listen, happy to give any type of insight that I possibly can. I've had the privilege of having several great mentors in my life, so I love serving the entrepreneur community. Whether they're looking for an opportunity to build a massive business in what we do. We've trained a lot of agents to do a lot of great things. But reach out to me. I'm happy to have conversations.
Cool. Awesome. Andre, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cheers.